What's up guys, it's Roger and welcome back to the channel, and today I wanted to ask you a very simple question. Where do you think Warlocks stack up against Titans and Hunters when it comes to the meta? Now, I don't just mean the recent meta, I mean for a long time, because this is something I want to talk about that goes to the roots of the classes as a whole. I want to start off by talking about class abilities, so let's look at the three we have. On Warlock we have a Rift. Now, I think Rift is pretty good, it'll heal you, give you a little overshield when you're standing in it, but when you compare it to the other two, a Titan Shield or a Hunter Dodge, you really start to see where it lacks. First of all, the biggest problem with a Warlock Rift is it's the only class ability we cannot use in battle. You cannot use it while you are in the middle of combat, or you are going to get absolutely smoked. You can't cancel the animation, you can't do anything. Once you're locked into it, you are in that animation. So we have to use it out of combat, or else you're just going to get your head knocked off. Now, that's fine, right? We can use it out of combat, we can get our little heal going, we get a little bit of an overshield. Here's the problem with that. The second you walk out of the Rift, you're going to lose that entire overshield, compared to something like a Titan Shield. Let's look at that next. Now, a Titan can pop their shield anywhere, straight in the middle of combat, throw that up. They're going to have a couple hundred health shield that you cannot blast through unless you take a lot of time and a lot of ammunition. And by the time you do are able to shoot through it, they're just going to be ready to smoke you. The next problem with that is you also cannot go through a Titan Shield. That's why I like Blink, because I actually can blink through a Titan Shield, whereas everything else can't just go through it without taking all of your damage. Why is it that they have a shield that sucks up a bunch of damage, can give them benefits if they're on something like Void Titan, which gives them and all their teammates in about a 30-meter radius a huge full overshield, and then at the same time, they can still pop it in the middle of combat and be just fine? That's actually insane when you think about it, but especially comparing it to a Warlock Rift, you really start to see where Warlocks are lacking. Let's take a look at what may be the strongest class ability in a Hunter Dodge. Now, Hunters can use this in the middle of combat, they can roll to cover, they can roll around you, and these dodges, depending on the subclass, are going to do a number of crazy things for you. I know on Arc Hunter at least, which is the only thing that I really use, you can use your one dodge to get your entire melee ability straight back up, or you can use another dodge if you want that'll fully reload your weapons, which of course are both very beneficial things to have and can hugely help you when you are in combat. Now, the fact that you can still use these in combat completely change your hitbox around and just have no punishment for that is insane. Not to mention you could use these out of combat before going into combat if you wanted some extra benefits as well. Just like I was saying, I use Arc Hunter. When I'm on Arc Hunter, sometimes I dodge before I go into combat. If I want to get one of my aspects loaded up, that is the empowered melee on the Arc Hunter. So there's also times you can use those out of combat, but the fact that you can use that out of combat and in combat, the same thing with the Titan Shield, is what's really setting back the Warlocks. Because again, you look at the Warlock Rift, you can only use it out of combat. Now, when I usually use a Warlock Rift, it's on Void Warlock. The best thing about that is I grab my Clarence, or Child of the Old Gods, as most of you probably know it, but I call it Clarence. And if I want to grab Clarence, I just grab him, and then I leave my Rift there, and I literally go into battle. Because the best thing about Warlock Rift is the extra part that I get from it, which is Child of the Old Gods. I don't even care about the Rift. I'd say 10% of the time is actually using the heal on the Rift. Most of the time, I'm just trying to get Child of the Old Gods out of it because it's such a good ability, and if I didn't have to use a Rift, if I could just press F and spawn a Child of the Old Gods and not even think about the Rift, I would honestly rather take that. If they just gave it a little bit of a lower cooldown and wanted to do that, I think that would be a beautiful trade-off. Now, another thing I wanted to touch on really quick is just things like a Hunter Jump. Hunter Jump is so solid. It also has a very low skill floor and a very low skill ceiling. You don't need to spend very much time, basically any time at all, before you're just leapfrogging over your friend's back in the backyard, and you also don't need any practice to get to the height of how much you can do with the Hunter Jump. You start out and you're going to grasp it within 10 minutes. That's why I like something like Blink, because I actually have to put time, practice, and some actual skill in to have fun and be skillful with my Blink, which is my main movement ability. But when it's something like a Hunter Jump that's just so simple and free, then you don't ever need to do that. Now, there's not much you can do about that in my opinion, and it's fine to have easy abilities. Of course, with the casual masses, that's something you want to have. There's a reason that most people pick Hunter in this game. It's because it's the easiest class, it takes the least amount of skill and actual learning to go into it, while still being able to be extremely strong, so it makes sense why people pick that. You don't need to use many brain cells to be a good Hunter player. The last thing I want to touch on is Warlock melees. Now, if I'm on Voidlock, or really any Warlock to be fair, and I shoot out my melee, even if it doesn't do any damage to an enemy, I get no use out of it, that melee's gone. On Titan, you can infinitely use your shoulder charge, and unless you hit an enemy with it, it just always stays up. And that's just insane to me. There needs to be some kind of balancing there to where if they use the shoulder charge 5-6 times out of combat, it still goes on cooldown. Because right now, It's just ridiculous. They can use that as many times as they want, and as long as they don't hit an enemy, they just keep getting it back over and over. That would be fine if that ability was actually made to be movement, but that's not how it is. Let's all be honest, that ability is made for damage. So I think that should be changed too if they want that to be any kind of balancing point. All that being said, I hope you guys enjoyed. Tell me in the comments, what do you think? What's holding Warlocks back? Or do you think that they're actually stronger than Hunters or Titans? I'd love to know your opinions, so leave those in the comments for me. And if you want to leave me a like on the video, I'd very much appreciate that. It really helps with the algorithm, so thank you for all that. And that is it for me today. So as always, have a great day, Guardians.